Baker here, and you may be familiar with my work as the Sixth Doctor. Now, I'm glad that you're here because it allows me to invite you to come with me into the TARDIS. It's been a great pleasure to play the Doctor on television, stage, and in the wonderfully produced audio drama adventures made by Big Finish Productions and licensed by the BBC. And that's what this podcast is all about. Doctor Who, audio drama from Big Finish. And you're in for a treat, because the TV casts in these adventures are back to entertain you with a host of familiar and new friends and enemies. So let's jump to it, shall we? This week, we feature the final part of The Night Witches. And if you missed the previous 3 episodes and you want to go back and listen, do feel free. Or if you're keen to jump in, let's do a quick recap for you. Russia in the Second World War. And through a twist in the vortex, the TARDIS crew have ended up attached to the Night Witches, a regiment of Russian women who fly night raids against the German war machine. And here, much to the Doctor's alarm, they've come face to face with Polly's double, star Russian pilot Tatiana Kreki. Suspecting that the TARDIS crew are German spies, trying to place a doppelganger in their ranks and thus destroy the regiment from within, Captain Nadia Vazny has hatched a plan to use Polly to make it appear that Tatiana is an invincible warrior who can come back from the dead, which means Polly must die. Tatiana, for her part, longing to escape the war, plans to dump Polly behind enemy lines and then pose as Polly and escape with the Doctor, Jamie and Ben. Ben, meanwhile, unaware of what Tatiana is planning, and having been tipped off about Nadia's plan by another Russian pilot, Lilia, who doesn't agree with what's going on, tries to fly after Polly, but to no avail, as Nadia shoots Lilia down and, leaving her for dead, recaptures Ben. It's complicated. The Doctor and Jamie, having survived both friendly and enemy fire, are behind enemy lines, taking shelter in a cave. The Doctor reconstructs a map of the terrain they're in and figures a way to recover the TARDIS, which is now in a German field HQ. Back at the Russian airstrip, Ben is reluctantly helping build defences against the oncoming German offensive when he discovers a badly wounded Lilia. Polly, meanwhile, is now in the air with Tatiana, ostensibly so she can go and search for the Doctor and Jamie, but secretly she is a pawn in Nadia and Tatiana's individual plans. The Doctor and Jamie, with a combination of stealth and brute force, have recovered the TARDIS and have made it back to the airstrip, where an angry confrontation with Nadia takes place, with the Doctor demanding that they be left to go on their way in the TARDIS. But there's a problem. Polly is now behind the German lines, stranded, as Tatiana flies off, intent on passing herself off as Polly and escaping the war with the TARDIS crew. It's a tad complicated, but I'm sure all will make sense as we launch into the final episode of The Night Witches. And don't forget, we'll go behind the scenes when we reconvene on the other side. You have to wake up pretty early to outsmart the Doctor. He saw through Tatiana, and it helped that the real Polly would have known how to fly the TARDIS. But on a serious note, the Night Witches were brave women, which brings us to look behind the scenes at the actual episode in history.
I'm Roland Moore, and I wrote The Night Witches. I was inspired to write this story because I'd always been interested in women during the war. One of the series I did for the BBC was Land Girls, which was mostly a female cast, and Night Witches just seemed like another story that a lot of people didn't know about. It was one of those things where I had a chance of making it into a Doctor Who story, and so 2 things came together at the same time and led me to sort of come up with this story. One of the reasons I opened the story with the TARDIS flying scene was I realised it had been done in another story, The Yes Men, where Polly was sort of beginning to learn some details of flying it. And so I thought I could use that, expand on that, because this story comes after The Yes Men. And it's a key plot point, obviously, at the end, that Tatiana can't fly the TARDIS in the way that Polly has learned. But even Polly, by this stage, isn't proficient in it, but she knows a few controls. So yeah, it was a nice sort of way to tie it into an earlier Big Finish story and give me a resolution. The characters in Night Witches are all fictitious, but they are based on sort of real people. Certainly the Night Witches did have star pilots who went on many, many raids, but I wanted to create fictional characters around them just so that I had free license to do a Doctor Who story. The idea of making the story about a doppelganger for Polly came around sort of the time that I thought up Night Witches as a plot, because I suddenly thought, yeah, if they're all an all-female group of pilots, what if one of them did look the identical image of Polly? And then I was sort of off on sort of enemy of the world territory, thinking, yeah, this would predate enemy of the world, but for Polly. And what really appealed to me was the Doctor's reticence for and reluctance to be there when he realises this, and he doesn't really explain why he's reluctant to be there, but he's got this sense of foreboding about him that they shouldn't be here. It's like the TARDIS has brought them here for this reason, for these two women to meet. In terms of writing a purely historical Doctor Who story, it was quite a sort of unusual occurrence how it happened, really, because certainly I approached Big Finish with a number of ideas, all of them concerning monsters and aliens and different things. This is the one historical story I pitched. And I thought when I was writing it, I thought I'd miss the presence of a monster of some sort or extraterrestrial thing. In the end, I realised that actually it would be another layer on it, which would be too much. And so I really embraced the fact it was purely historical, and it's sort of a pure sort of form of Doctor Who that sort of finished with the Highlanders.
I'm Angela McIntosh, and I play the character of Tatiana Kriegi.
A man who looks like Trump, another in skirt. You are unlikeliest group of spies I could imagine.
That's because we're not.
I hadn't heard, actually, of the Night Witches before, and it is a true story about the Night Witches, the Russian squadron of women. So that was very interesting. So that makes it more interesting to read when you know it's sort of based on a true story. So I was quite pleased to play the part of Tatiana, who's the poster girl pilot for the Night Witches, which is great. She is the main pilot, as it says in the script. She's done 32 flights in a week, so I think she's pretty exhausted, but she just gets on with her job. I think underneath, I think she's probably a very nice person. She's probably quite tired by it all.
My name is Kristina Bujkaide, and I play Lilia Grankin.
These planes are hardly the latest models, are they?
Crop dusters. Planes from last war. We're farmers and people from the country. People who wanted to take up arms and help our comrades.
You're fighting Germans and you're not trained.
But we still strike fear into their hearts. Oh, I love my character, really. I think she's so colorful, and like just in one episode, there is so much for me to do as an actor, as her emotions and feelings and the adventures that they're going through. It's just changing, and it's so different as well. So for myself, it was really nice to work on it, to see the character and show the character in different aspects.
My name is Wanda Opalinska, and I'm playing Nadia Vasniev, commander of the regiment.
You startled me, Commander.
I cannot spare you. You will stay here, prepare for the battle.
But what about taking Ben to be with Polly?
He's not going anywhere. Neither is she.
I'm Polish origin, but my family are from the east of Poland, so we were refugees from the Russians rather than the Germans. And so the whole history of what happened on the Eastern Front was it's very much something I'm very interested in. It's very much tied up with sort of my own family history. And there were so many extraordinary women, especially when you sort of look at the records of the Soviet army. And I'd heard a little bit about them, but obviously as preparation for this, I read up about them. And it was extraordinary because they were such young women. I mean, they were mainly in their early 20s. And they'd been working as farm girls, but they were pilots before the war. And I think especially in contrast to what was happening in Western Europe, the idea that these women had already learnt to fly, a lot of women petitioned to be part of the war effort. But they're flying 10 times in a night, these incredibly dangerous missions. keeping out of searchlights. They used to fly in a formation of 3. So I think 2 of them would try and draw fire and the other one would be the bomber. It's terrifying.
Now, a roll of the destination dice as I gaze into the vortex. And we're sticking with chronological order and stepping into the era of the 3rd Doctor. So, slip into some velvet and ruffles as we prepare for the scream of ghosts. When the Brigadier and Joe are called in to look into a breakthrough in the field of portable communication. The Doctor has to stay behind with communications problems of his own. A strange signal coming through the TARDIS console that's burned out its circuits. When Benton approaches the Doctor with an odd story about an old friend, the Time Lord realizes his troubles and the Brigadier's investigations may be connected and hotfoots it in pursuit. Soon they discover that terrifying sounds are walking in the woods of the English countryside. But what lurks behind those sounds may be even more dangerous. Now that sounds very intriguing, does it not? So join me next time as you prepare to come with me into the TARDIS. Now don't forget that Doctor Who, the worlds of Doctor Who, and more besides, live on at bigfinish.com. You've been listening to Into the TARDIS, hosted by me, Colin Baker, and produced by Ian Meadows. Supervising producer was Lizzie Worsdale, and executive producers are Nicholas Briggs and Jason Haig-Ellery.